You're listening to the One Step Deeper podcast with your host, Jimmy Moore and Brittany Davis. OneStepDeeperPodcast.com.
Drinking the Go Juice.
The Go Juice, is that what you call it? What is it? A rain?
The Brain Go Juice. Yes, it is a rain.
Brain Go Juice. I haven't seen that one. Of course,
It's
I don't.
a white gummy bear.
Do they taste different than the green gummy bears or than the blue gummy bears?
Not really.
I was going to say, a gummy bear, it's a gummy bear.
Yeah.
Yes. I love this time of year. It's like that in between the winter and spring. So it's not cold. It's been actually pretty warm here in the South anyway. Sorry to all of you guys who live in a northern climate and it's still frigid. But it's warmer, but there's not the pollen in the air just yet. This is the perfect little, I don't know, is there a season between winter and spring? Wing? Can we call this wing? Because it's one.
Sprinter.
What?
Sprinter.
Sprinter.
Spring and winter?
The winter first and then it's spring. So that's why I thought wing.
Fine. Logistics.
I'm always right. Oh, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Most certainly not. For the love of life, communicate already, right?
Right.
Yes. So yes, guys, that's what we're talking about here today in episode 59 of the One Step Deeper podcast. For the love of life, communicate. And it seems so easy to be able to communicate. That's literally why the spoken language exists, why the written language exists. But a lot of people, Brittany, they don't know how to communicate, do they?
Oh, no. There's lots of communication problems among relationships and life in general, and body language and spoken word and written word. And there's just lots of miscommunication going on these days, huh?
Yeah, so we're going to get into all of that here in just a moment. OneStepDeeperPodcast.com is the website. Go check us out over there, you guys. You can see all the past episodes. Listen to the audio. There's also the video embedded in each of the 59 episodes. Go check it out over there on our website. On Sundays at 4 p.m. Eastern, we do debut these on YouTube. Just type in a keyword, One Step Deeper, and you will find the show. It's pretty easy to find. You type in, quote, One Step Deeper. You see all of our episodes. It's wonderful. And here's a little trick. If you want to find a past episode, I know y'all talked about Enneagram. So go One Step Deeper in quotes and then put Enneagram in quote, and you'll find it. It'll pop up right away at the very top. So that's kind of a little secret to finding old episodes. You can do the same thing on our website, by the way, OneStepDeeperPodcast.com. There's a search bar, and you can just put in the keyword, and you'll find whatever we've talked about. It also simulcasts over on Instagram as well as Facebook, so go check that out. A couple days ahead of time, we do put up a little tidbit, little 15-minute little sneak peek so that you can get a taste of what the episode is about. A lot of people, they watch those, and then they're like, hey, I love this topic. Let's go watch the full episode on Sunday. So watch those. They pop up on my page on like Friday, One Step Deeper page on Friday, and then Miss Brittany puts it up on Sunday morning, so you can check that out there. There's also a little reel that we put up. I had a nice little reel for the one last week, kind of challenging everyone. Hey, and encourage your influencer people that give you, all kind of good stuff. So it's always nice to have little things out there. Go check that out. Monday, we do have a traditional podcast. Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Alexa is where you can check us out. And then finally go on over to the Apple Podcasts. That's where, I'm not sure if Spotify lets you put reviews. I haven't looked. But yeah,
no written reviews. Brittany Binky, our loyal listener, my friend, she said you can leave stars on Spotify. Okay. That's it.
Go leave us stars over on Spotify. But on Apple Podcasts, if you have Apple products, you can type us out a review and give stars as well. So thank you guys so much. And yes, we're still working on the book. It'll be here, One Step Deeper Journal, The Foundations. I promise when it comes, it will be so worth all this wait that we've had. Trust me and Brittany are probably the most frustrated people that it's not out yet, but it will be coming very soon. Okay, for the love of life, communicate. tell me how this kind of got on your radar screen, because we talked about this several weeks ago now. What was it that kind of instigated? Was there an incident that happened where communication broke down? What happened?
This is a topic of mine that I talk about often. I think what came up when we were discussing the topic was, I have a friend and they're in a relationship and they were kind of venting to me about the relationship, and I was like, but did you tell them? And they're like, well, no. And I was like, but there's your problem.
Yes.
Like, this is not a them problem or a you problem. This is a lack of communication problem. And, Wildman and I, we get it all the time. We have friends who are like, oh, you have such a great relationship. And we're just kind of dumbfounded when people tell us that, because we're just like, what, they're like, what's the secret? And we're like, talking, communicating, being forward with what we want, what we expect, what we desire, changes. Just this morning, for an example, Wildman always says, you're perfect for me or perfect to me. And I told him this morning, I said, you know what? Thank you, but let's shift that word. Perfect is a tough word for me. And so I just communicated to him. I was like, hey, let's stop using that word. Let's find a different word. I'll help you find a word if we need to, but it's just those simple little direct communication, but that breaks down for so many people. And then they just completely shut off communication at that. And then they wonder why their relationships, their family dynamics, their spouse, their parent-child relationship, they wonder why it breaks down. I feel like it's lack of communication and also lack of comprehension.
Well, and you and I have had those discussions too about little things of you said things and then I'm like, how do I broach this subject? That's a trigger word. And you're like, oh my God, no idea. And so you would keep doing it. I wouldn't say anything. How would you ever know? And so people start to build resentment towards people because they didn't communicate those kinds of things. But then there's resentment, but the other end has no idea you're building resentment. And so it just kind of comes to this head, and then suddenly, rah, and it's like, whoa, what happened? And that happens so often in interpersonal relationships, love relationships, work relationships, friendships. We just don't communicate enough. And I guess it begs the question, why not? Is there a fear over communication?
Yes. I see this a lot of times when my husband and I, we're not counselors by any means, we're not professionals, but we have a lot of friends who come to us for relationship advice. I don't know why. But they come to us, and so when we're having these conversations with them,
I know why. You're happy. You present as happy. Yes, you have your issues. Every couple does, but you present yourselves as happy and stable, so it makes sense they would come to you.
Yeah. So we were having this conversation like with couples that come to us and asking this question, and it's always the same thing. Well, I don't want to hurt their feelings, or I don't want to do, and it's always about the other person. And I said, okay, pull it back for a second. Number one, by not communicating to them what you need, you're not just hurting them in the long run, but you are hurting yourself. How about your feelings? How about your emotions? How about what's going on internally with you? Because if you sit on the things that you need to communicate, the longer you sit on them, the bigger they get. And the other person has no idea. The other person has no idea what's going on inside of you, so they could say something like, hey, did you pull the chicken out? And you blow up at them. And they're like, hey, whoa, what are you talking about? Did you pull the chicken out? Because they have no idea the internal lack of communication that you've put out there for so long that this thing has built. They have no idea what's going on. And so when you do overreact, to them it's overreaction. To you, it's appropriate. Except in some level, you didn't let them in on what's going on. So whose fault is it? Sorry, that was tough.
No. When you don't communicate, you're like a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
And it's like it has to have that communication is releasing the pressure in the pressure cooker. What happens, Miss Cook, that had spilling over in her kitchen as of the recording of this yesterday?
Dang, man, this what happens. I was trying to rush, and I made a mess. Oh man. I was making rice. It got it everywhere.
What happens if you don't release the valve?
Yo, I was making rice, and you're supposed to let rice naturally pressure release. And I was like, no, I'm gonna do this, and I pushed the button, and all of the rice
Exploded.
Yeah, it was just everywhere. I was like, what in the world?
Yeah. So what a great allegory for what we're talking about here right now, that, you know, you have to release that. And it's like, if it's pent up, and then suddenly, bow, and the other person's like, what the? And this is where the communication comes into play. And look, I've been in a very long love relationship. I've been in some long friendships. I've had lots of different relationships. There is a new wrinkle that comes in with longer relationships. And you and I are about to be into year 4 very soon of ours. Familiarity makes you assume things about other people. And so past behavior, not that you would do this to me or me do this to you, we have a very good open communication relationship. But a lot of people, they get so used to each other that after a while, they just in their mind think, oh, they already know, so therefore I don't have to communicate. And guys, that is a huge no. You have to still communicate. And especially if you're watching a show called One Step Deeper, listening to us One Step Deeper, we want you to personally grow and develop. And so you're constantly becoming something different than you were in the past. Miss Brittany, far different than she was just 1 year ago. Same with Jimmy. And so if you're not always checking in with communication and saying, hey, this is the way it is now, you can't make assumptions that they're the same as they were before, but it happens all the time.
Yes. And talking about relationships, this is going to dive into relationships really, which is a really passionate topic for me. I was listening to a comedian, and he was talking about when you get up there and you're saying I do, you have to realize that you're saying I do to multiple people.
Yes.
Because people change over and over. You know, was talking to Wildman, him and I both are on this way different journey, like currently. And we just kind of stare at each other like, wow, rewind 11 years ago to when this started. Did you ever see this coming? And we both are just like shocked and shook, but we continue to say yes, and we continue to communicate. But, you know, going back to the couples that come to us, even like older couples, like 50s, 40s, and 50s, and they come to us.
Right.
And I was having a conversation, and this one particular person, I won't say names, but they mean a lot to me in my life. They're like, well, she should know what I need because I've told her. And I was like, how many times? Well, I told her.
Once. Kind of like that old joke of, honey, why don't you ever say you love me anymore? And the man's like, I told you I love you once, and if I change my mind, I'll let you know.
I'll let you know. Exactly. And that's where, you know, he was at with it. I said, listen, I understand where you're coming from, that you have this relationship, you know, you've been married, you love her, she loves you, and it would make you feel good if she just knew how to take care of you and all of your needs, except that's not how it works. You know, she's constantly taking care of the needs of a child who's just screaming and crying at her, and she's already having to decipher what that child needs and meet that need. And then she's having to decipher her own needs. What the hell do I need? And then now she's got this, grown ass man who's not communicating to her relentlessly what it is that he needs. You know, and I told him, I was like, that's a problem with you. That's a you problem. And it is so easy. He feels like he's already being rejected if he asks for it. Because if I have to ask for it, then you're just going to do it out of guilt.
Let's go back to childhood and my abuser. So my dad used to make me feel so bad that I didn't know things that he was thinking. And he would get so upset at me. Well, how would you not do that? You need to know that. I'm like, I haven't heard anybody say anything. Well, you're just supposed to know. And I'm like, how would I know if you don't communicate? And then get hit for not knowing. Yeah. So that's a lot of the skittishness that I had early on. I'm better at it now, but I on of even like questioning, like communicate with me, because it's like that translated into you're stupid,
Right.
you should know things. And then I was in other relationships where the same thing happened. There was these assumptions made that you should just know, well, you're this role in my life, so because you're in that role, you should know that you're supposed to do this. How would I know? Like, it's so unfair to each other to leave us in the dark, make those assumptions, and for the love of life, communicate. Like, how hard is this?
Right. Yeah, I think of that particular person I was talking with, and I've gone one step deeper with them and asked them these prying questions that I do all the time. And I know their childhood, and I know where it comes from. This, if I have to ask for it, then they'll just be guilted. His father never said I love you. Like, ever. It wasn't a thing, didn't show affection. And he had to rationalize it in his head that, I'm not going to ask for it. I can't ask for it because I'm not going to hear, I don't want the guilt. He had to rationalize that and create that pattern in his head to excuse the reason why his father never said I love you to him. And so now he says I love you all the time, like to everybody. If he loves them, he loves them, and he's going to tell them, he's going to communicate. And so I use that same example, and I said, all right, when you feel like you have to communicate to this person, hey, I need XYZ, and it already makes you feel rejected just by having to ask, do you like hearing I love you? Do you enjoy that? Well, she told you yesterday. Why you need to hear it today?
Yeah.
Well, she told you 10 weeks ago. Why you need to hear it today? Do you need to hear it tomorrow? How about 10 weeks from now? Do you need to hear it still? And I said, it's the same thing. You're constantly communicating, I love you. So you need to constantly communicate, hey, let's hang out. I'd like to sit down on the couch and watch a movie. It's so important, guys.
And let's just put it out there. The communication is not about the words. It's about the intent behind the words, the tone behind the words, the meaning behind the words. Like, and I tell you this a lot, I'm proud of you. You're doing a great job with the podcast. The book is amazing. Like, I say those words to you often, and I almost feel apologetic now. I always kind of go, I know I say it a lot, but I'm really proud of you. And I do that because I already know you don't take compliments very well, but I say it again and again because I care. And that communication is, in my mind, if I repeat it often enough, then maybe someday that little brain of hers will finally get it in her head of, hey, I should be proud of me. If Jimmy keeps being proud of me, Wildman's proud of me, everybody around me is proud of me. Oh, maybe I should be proud of me. So it does manifest in that way of, it's more than just the words of communicating. Like, it's not told, I'm proud of you. Okay, are we done yet? No, it's not that. It's truly, hey, I see you there. You mean something to me. I'm proud of you.
Yeah. And that's exactly another way. When you're communicating, don't just communicate your needs, but like communicate things that you see, things that matter to you, and I'm not great at compliments. Again, this is something that it's childhood. I'm working on it.
She gets so awkward, you guys. I'll offer a compliment about something. She's like, I'm like, are you throwing up? What are you doing? What is that noise?
And it's not just that I'm not so great at receiving. I'm not so great at giving either. It is way out of my comfort zone to give compliments. And so, like, words of affirmation, that love language, the 5 love languages is important too. I think we should get into that one just a second.
Which your husband has words of affirmation as one of his love languages.
Right. And
so does Jimmy, by the way. So how do you fight that?
You're a lot more words of affirmation than Wildman is. Wildman is pretty much physical touch, but
did you go keto and thought you had to give up wine? Well, let me introduce you to Dry Farm Wines. It is the world's first sugar-free alcohol that is lower than your typical wines, organic, made at local farms that do it the right way. Most of the wines that you buy are from 3 really big companies, loaded with additives and preservatives, so many dozens of those kinds of things. You don't want all that junk in your wine. So go to dryfarmwines.com/Jimmy and they will ship you these wines. And just because you listen to this podcast, Dry Farm Wines is going to give you a bottle in your first order for just 1 cent. Go to dryfarmwines.com/Jimmy and you will get your bottle of wine for just 1 singular penny. Go check them out. Dry Farm Wines, you guys. It's wine o'clock somewhere. Let's go get some wine.
Oh, let's just do it. So when it comes to communication within a love relationship, and even like any relationship, a friendship or parent-child relationship, there's this book called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman.
Yep.
And he goes into detail of which one is which. And this is really like effective communication. If you want to effectively communicate with someone, like learn their love language. Don't just communicate through your love language. So the 5 of them are words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, gifts, and acts of service. And so some of them can cross over. Some of them, you might have a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but usually there's one main one. Mine's quality time. I don't have to physically be next to you. I can talk on the phone with you for 3 hours.
You would prefer you would prefer not being physically next to you.
Yeah, I'm usually,
At my birthday party, I went to hug her and she was just like, "Oh, I'm all hugged out, Jimmy's."
I did. My sister and I just spent like 6 hours in one day on the phone because, that's my love language and I'm appreciative of that. And so Wild Man knows when he wants to communicate with me and meet with me and fill my love cup, it's spending time with me. So when he's working all these hours, I'm just like, my cup is so empty right now.
Yes. Why, when you've got a week time and you're currently in the middle of that week time or at the very beginning of it, it gets hard on you towards the end.
It does, because I don't feel like I've been communicated with, and and it's not anything that he can help. He has to work. But when communication breaks down and there's lack of communication in this area and other areas, you feel unloved. And what happens when you feel unloved? You react and you're more reactive, and then you're angry, and then anger is actually what underneath, sometimes it's resentment, bitterness, sometimes it's just fear, sometimes it's just, I don't feel loved, and I don't know how to communicate to you that I don't feel loved.
Yeah.
Because that's harder to say, so you just be angry all the time.
Well, you hit on something really big in there when you said, don't communicate to others in the way that you feel loved. Because if you do it in the way you feel loved, and that other person doesn't have those same feelings, the same qualities, the love language, they're not going to feel loved. And I've seen this in relationships that I've had and in other people. And it always comes down to, well, I'm giving them what I would want. And I'm like, there's the problem. This is why that open line of communication is so critical. Yes, take that little test from Gary Chapman, which, by the way, that's a Christian resource. When I used to work in Christian bookstores back in the 90s, we sold millions of those. But, well, we didn't sell, but they sold millions back in the 90s when they first came out. But anyway, that's the crux of why there's so much difficulty in these communications, is when you do try to communicate, you only see it through your prism. And look, I have worked very hard to get into that crazy mind of Brittany Davis. And I learned something new about you as of this morning. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know you had that tendency, because we were communicating there. And I was like, okay, now I've got another point of reference in my head. There's other points of references where, like, when you need to be alone, that I don't understand that personally, but because I now know that is your thing, and I'm starting to put myself in your shoes. That's the thing, guys. This whole, for the love of life, communicate. Put yourself in the shoes of that person, not your version of that person. Yes. And this communication thing will go to a whole new level. I think that's why Brittany and I bond so strong, is she tries to see things through my eyes, and I try to see things through her eyes. It's a scary place on both directions because we're very unique people, but it works.
Yeah, the thing I wanted to get back into when we were talking about the 5 love languages is you're very much words of affirmation. And that's perhaps the one that I struggle with the most. Because it is not even on my radar. Like, it is not even listed. Like, there's only 5 of them, and it's not even in the top 5.
It's fascinating that we're best friends, that I love words of affirmation. You don't give them. So
No, exactly. Yes, exactly. Go ahead.
You don't give them enough. You do make an effort, and it's always so painful. Thank you, Jim. Me, and I'm like, wow, does it hurt that much? I guess it does.
Yes, exactly. And so, but as your friend, and as we progressed, I have realized, okay, and it's not just Jimmy. I have other people in my life who enjoy words of affirmation. If I'm going to build a quality relationship with them, I have to communicate on their level. And so, even if it's difficult for me, if I desire that relationship and I want to build that relationship, personally develop that relationship, if you will, I have to get better at communicating in the way that they feel.
What's funny about yours being quality time is when you want to be alone. So at the point, the communication is the alone is the quality time with Brittany here.
Oh.
And so I had to reframe that in my head. I'm like, well, she likes quality time. I give her quality time. We talk for hours on end during the week. But when you go quiet on me, in my mind, I go, well, she's not letting me stroke that love language, but she is, because she's having that quality time here when you're alone. And so I've learned to, it's still tough, but I've learned to be a little better about how to dance that.
Yeah, you were talking about this morning that
I stated clearly that I'm available when you need me. So if you truly do, you reach out. In fact, yesterday you were like, you got any interviews going on? Or and I'm like, okay, that's code for I can talk. So
it was by now. I wasn't just gonna cut, because here's the thing. I know Jimmy because I know myself, and we would do the same thing. If I straight up said, Jimmy, let's talk, he would call me no matter what he had on his plan. And I didn't want him to cancel any of his plans because it wasn't emergent. I just wanted to talk. So
yes.
That's code why I asked him better. Our code words. Yeah. Oh man. Seriously though, communication is it's vital. And I wanted to get into, they say what communication is key. Actually, comprehension is. And that's why we talked about the love languages, because I can communicate with Wild Man all day long on my level of just spend time with me, just talk to me. But at the end of the day, he's not comprehending my communication, because that's not the way that he communicates. That's not what matters to him. That's not what's inside of him. And I know his is physical touch, which is hilarious because I hate. Don't touch me.
What you guys, Brittany is so skittish. I mean, you have your moments. You love that man to death. You would be all over him if in the right mood. But I always wonder, how does that work? He loves touching. You don't. How does that work?
We have met in the middle through communication, through effective and relentless communication.
Yes.
That if we're both filling each other's love cup. If we're having a conversation together and I'm holding his hand, or I'm holding his leg, or I'm rubbing his arm, or rubbing on, just touching him.
Or tell the story about the grocery store the other night when you were popping his booty and.
Oh gosh. Okay. We were in the grocery store and I just kept slapping him on the butt. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're in a long-term relationship, chances are you slap each other on the butt. And I just kept hitting him. And I was just like, I looked at him, I was like, what a bitch got to do to get her husband to slap her ass? And I was like trying to back it up to him because he wasn't giving it back. And he ended up telling me, well, you don't like that. So I wasn't going to do it. And I was like, well, here, I'll try, just do
it. He was honoring the boundary of the communication you had made to him. See, and it was at that point you went, crap. He was right. I was wrong.
Yes, exactly. So that was funny. And so I was like, all right, I'm communicating, my dude. Can you just a little tap? That was funny.
Slip a little whisper in his ear. Slap my ass, dumbass.
Oh goodness. Yes, exactly. That was a good. I'm glad you remembered that, because that was a good story to tell.
That was hilarious when you said that the other day. I was like, oh, that's perfect. But it also meant he respected you from prior communication. This is kind of a key in communication. If they communicate, don't forget if you can. I mean, try to remember those things. And look, that's why long-term building of relationships is so critical. You can't really know somebody like that you just meet. I'm on the dating scene now, and I've been dating a few girls here and there. And yeah, like at the first, it's like you don't know anything about them other than kind of what you know of them. And it's like the longer you would progress with someone, then you start to learn idiosyncrasies. You start to have that tit for tat. But you must have an open communication from both sides. Like this is where it gets tricky as well, is there might be one party to the relationship, friendship, love relationship, whatever, one party that's willing to communicate, but then the other one doesn't communicate back. Guys, it's a two-way street. If it's not two-way, you're just inviting conflict later.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And this is, too, what you were talking about, getting into active listening. So I think about active listening and applying it into school. How many times did you study just to take the test? You didn't study to remember the stuff long term. And so that's kind of what active listening is. Like, are you listening to reply? Are you listening because you're truly hearing them? And so you were saying, remember what they tell you. That's active listening. When someone tells you something, oh, you take it, like you etch it in your brain. Okay, cool. They've communicated this to me. This is important. Not just they say something, you say something. And communication is going to look that way no matter what. It's just what's going on internally when someone tells you something that matters to them. You know, Jimmy and I have gotten into some eccentric conversations, emotional conversations. And even though there was lots of emotions, and I would have rather, calm down first before we talked, which is important too. We'll get to that. Sometimes you have to have those conversations in those heated moments. And I was actively listening to what he said and what mattered to him. He was actively listening to me, not just listening to reply and say what made me feel good. Like, we had a tough communication conversation. But at the end of it, we learned something. And so I guess that active listening is important, because at the end you're learning something. You're not just having a conversation that's not going to lead anywhere.
Well, and every time we've had one of those moments, it's always been because there was lack of communication just prior. Like, literally, I almost think you can conflict proof your life if you're just overtly communicating almost on a consistent basis. I get it. There will be some people who will never. And those are the people you have to evaluate. Are they worth having in your life? Not, because, you want to live a peaceful life. You kind of have to have that open communication back and forth. But in our case, yeah, we've had 3 knockdown dragouts in the 3 years we've been friends. The last one was pretty rough. I mean, it got to the point where you hung up on me, and I was like, it's hard to communicate if I'm talking to an empty phone. But then you were like, will you let me talk? And so, can I please talk? I'm like, call back. I won't say a word until I hear you're quiet for 5 seconds. And I did. Go, and you went off. I want to say 12 minutes in a row. And I was just like, okay, keep talking. I'll listen. And I was listening intently to everything. And at the end of it, I was like, you're right. And we resolved it.
Yeah. And it was tough.
Those times suck, Brittany. But no, listen, they suck in the moment. But I think because we're willing to try to work it out and not just discard one another, which is what happens in society, that communication actually bonded us stronger. Like, I don't imagine any scenario after the 3 incidents we've had that would ever push us apart as friends, because we are willing to have those conversations, even tough conversations, to communicate. And we don't have to agree, and God knows we don't, on so many things, but we do agree we care about each other. And that's what communication is about. You can't communicate with someone that you don't care about.
Oh, yeah.
If you care about them, if you love them, if you have any inkling of your heart wanting them in your life, you will communicate.
Yeah, and I was going to say vice versa to that. If someone is in your life and they refuse to communicate, you have to evaluate that relationship. And it's not necessarily that they're a bad person. You know, I know good, meaning people in this world who just don't have the communication skills that they need. They're not developed. But you have to, where are you at? Are you at level 5 and they're at level 1? That's a hard fucking relationship to be in when you're just so far ahead of them in communication skills that them just saying their needs becomes difficult. Them just speaking out loud, let's go out to dinner because I'd like to go on a date. That simple becomes difficult because they've never had their needs met, you know. And Wildman is definitely one of those people, and we've talked about this before, that his needs were always hushed. And he always had to meet the needs of everybody else. And so he still does that. So sometimes.
You too.
Oh, hush.
No. As a kid, you too had your needs quashed. You ended up playing mommy to kids that weren't your own. You ended up having to take responsibilities at a very young age that you had no business taking. Go read our book, One Step Deeper, Journal of the Foundations. You'll learn all about her story. But you went through. So did I.
Yeah, we did. And so now with him, I feel like his is pretty severe. That he'll hush anything that he needs or he desires or he wants, and he won't communicate that. So I pick it up and I come to him and say, okay, what do you need? And I kind of like force the communication. And it's not just him, by the way. He does this with me. Last night I was extremely emotional, very heightened. He could tell that something was wrong and I wasn't telling him the full story. And so he just looks at me and grabs me by the face like, sweetheart, I'm here. What is it that you need? I am here. I'm listening. Please, like, talk to me. And so when I realized, oh yeah, he is here for me, I calmed down and I communicated to him what it was that I was feeling. And the cool thing is, and if you practice this, communication de-escalates you. It almost immediately, as soon as he gave me the open door to just talk of what was going on in my brain, I could just feel the stress immediately leave my body. The more I just got to say out loud and get it out of me, what I was feeling, and just say it out loud to him, it was refreshing. It was refreshing. Now I needed to do that again this morning because I woke up with all of the emotions back up here. And so just kind of communicating, all right, this is where I am. And I did it in my stories, you know, and I'm so grateful for the people that watch my stories and you talk to me on Instagram. I love you all. You mean a lot to me, but just being able to get on there and share what I'm struggling with at the moment.
The illusion that I've created in my mind that not living up to something that's not even reality in the first place is what's causing the guilt. And so it's not that I have to stop the guilt. I have to go back one step deeper, if you will, to dismantle the illusion that I have that perfection is achievable in the first place, because it's not.
And almost always when I'm vulnerable like that in my stories, I always get somebody in my DMs, thank you for sharing that. I'm struggling with that too. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. So by me communicating out loud to the people that I care about, I do care about the people who follow me or listen to the podcast. I love you all. You all mean so much to me, and I'm always available if you need to message me. I say that a lot, but I just want to say it again. If you need somebody to communicate to because you don't have anybody in your life, please, I am here. I love communication, quality time, love language. Fill my cup. I'm here for you. But that means a lot to me to be able to communicate to those people, and that you kind of give me that, hey, thanks for doing that. So that's important.
A lot of people ask me, Jimmy, how do you get such good, deep sleep? Well, there's a lot of things that I do, but one of the newest things that I recently added is this upgraded magnesium from a company called Upgraded Formulas. Go to their website, upgradedformulas.com, and you can learn all about this nano technology that they use for this particular mineral of magnesium. Again, it's called Upgraded Magnesium. And it's got all the different forms of magnesium in it, using the nanotechnology so it gets absorbed a lot better. Guys, I have seen my deep sleep improve by as much as 30 to 40% simply by adding in this product along with sunshine exposure, darkness in the room, cooler temperature, all of the things that I always have done. So again, upgradedformulas.com is the website. Go check them out. Yeah, from a society standpoint, we have it so backwards. We don't teach kids how to communicate collectively as a society, not individual parents like yourself, you and Wildman. Y'all are raising 3 amazing communicators. And I love that piece that you put in the book about how you talk about the best of the day and the worst of the day. You want to tell that a little bit, kind of what you do?
Sure. So when we sit down at the dinner table, we always do what we call best and worst. And we go around the table and we tell the best part of our day and the worst part of our day because we honor it all. And sometimes they're like, I didn't have a best part. Everything was bad today. We talk about it and we don't shame because some days are like that. And then some days are like, I had a good day today. Nothing was the worst. And so like in all my grace, sometimes the worst is like, you didn't give me a snack when I asked for one.
Right. And she only asked like 50 times within an hour. Sometimes you and I'll be on the phone and Alma Grace, Mommy, I need a snack. And she just had breakfast 30 minutes prior. And Brittany's like, sweetie, you just ate breakfast. We're going to hold off on the snack. 15 minutes later, Mommy, I want a snack. I don't know how you do it. At least she's communicating.
That is it. That is the key. And communication. And let's go into that. I do have 3 kids that it is so important to me, for the love of life, communicate. It is so important to me that I teach that with them. So in the beginning, when they're babies, their only form of communication is body language and cries. That is their only form. And I had to decipher as mom what that meant. I had to decipher those messages. And as they got older, I would say communicate. So Darcy's my middle child, and Cammie's my oldest, and Cammie talked so much. She talked so much as a kid. And they're 2 years apart. And so Cammie was just talking. And Darcy didn't talk. She didn't say anything. Darcy's first words was she was about 14 months old. And I was getting really worried at that point. And we had started, I was like, all right, we need to communicate. So we started using sign language to communicate with her. I needed a way for her to tell me drink or cup, or not just grunt at me and hold her cup up. I'm like, we need communication skills. And we were sitting at the breakfast table and Cammie just talking like she always does. And Darcy's first word, I'm not even kidding you guys, she just like put her arms down, looks at Cammie and says, shut up. I wish I was telling a lie. I wish I was. This is such a true story.
Yes, that's hilarious.
Cammie had stifled her communication skills because Cammie never stopped talking. And so Darcy was just like, dude, shut up.
Can't get a word in edgewise. Cammie does talk quite a bit, and Darcy is still very quiet. So, and now
yes.
Alma Grace can't shut up either. So
Alma Grace is definitely like Cammie. But the other day I had a sweet conversation with Cammie, and I was like, it was one of those moments when she walked out of my room, I was like, oh, I'm doing it right. It's working. She just came to my room and she's like, Mom, can I shut the door? And I was like, oh crap. Yes. And she asked me a tough question, and to respect her, I won't share the question, but she did ask me a really tough question. And, internally I'm screaming as I'm trying to give her the if you're old enough to ask the question, you're old enough to know the answer. And so I'm communicating to her in a calm manner, and I'm not letting my internal screams be evident in our conversation. And I loved it. When she walked out after our conversation was over, I was like, communication, I'm doing it right, because she felt so comfortable. I never would have asked my mom that question. Never. She felt so comfortable with me that I have directly communicated with her enough that she's learned the skill. Mom communicates with me, I'm going to communicate with her. And she just came in my room and felt completely comfortable. And so that's important too when you're talking about the love of life, communicate. Have open mind, like an open mind within your relationships, that people can come to you and communicate those hard things. Jimmy and I, for example, like he said, there are things we do not see eye to eye on. And I ask him when we go into these conversations to have an open mind and vice versa. And it's difficult having an open mind on something as heated as we get into.
Yeah.
It's difficult, but having that open mind is so important to communication.
And it stretched my thinking on things. And hopefully, see, your problem is a lot of my thinking is similar to what you've heard from other people in your life. And so when you hear things articulated from me, you think of them. And I'm like, no, I have a different prism than they do. Same basic belief that they do, but from a different angle. And so sometimes you go, oh my gosh, I was only seeing it from this other person's angle, which was way toxic. Jimmy's less toxic. Okay, I see where you're coming from. And so I think we've stretched each other. How beautiful is that communication, guys? Like, stretch yourself beyond what you think you know and believe and become a better human in the process.
Yeah, I wrote this down in my notes. Communication allows one step deeper within relationships.
Yeah.
You know, what's what we talk about here, just taking it one more.
So with communication, there's one little pet peeve in this. Please be direct about what you're communicating. I hear and I've experienced so many times people dancing around the issue that they're trying to say, but they're dancing around it. And so they're leaving the interpretation of this dancing around to the person, thinking they should just know what they're dancing around and trying to say. No, if you got something to say it. And I say this to Brittany all the time. She's like, I don't know if I want to. I'm just like, just say it. There is nothing you can do outside of get out of my life. I don't like you anymore. Goodbye. That would make me go away from you.
Right.
So, like, stop playing the little games of dancing around what you want to say. Say what you mean what you say. And if the relationship is genuine and authentic and you genuinely care about each other, it'll survive whatever you have to say.
Yes, that is so true. I wrote that down too. That be simple and be direct. Don't give complicatedness. Just keep it direct and simple.
Or couch language. That just kills me. The people they say things in kind of couch language because I guess they're afraid of hurting your feelings. Yeah. They come across as too harsh. They're afraid of losing you if they go full bore. Like, communication is merely information. Let's just look at it that way. Sometimes we interpret the communication as, oh my gosh, see, that's how they feel in totality about me. No, it could just be how they feel in that moment about that issue you're talking about, like some of the discussions we've had that have gotten heated. I don't think less of you in those moments just because you're a little more intense at that moment. I know that we're talking about that very thing. It doesn't mean, well, thing over here that she's about, or this thing over here she's thinking about. No, it's about this thing. And even our society has done that, where, well, if you believe like this, you must be, and here comes the box. And they put you in these little boxes. Well, you believe that, then you're in this box. And it's like, no,
don't put me there. Yeah, I'm with you. I just hate I'm just like, don't put me there. Don't put me in that box. And I think about my mom. So I was stifled in my communication. I am a brutal communicator, and I always have been. Tough love is not hard for me to give or receive. It is just, I don't know, personality. But go ahead.
And it was hard for me to give you tough love because I was always the one that kind of tried to gently kind of deliver and communicate. And after a while, guys, she's made me through default of, okay, well, I'm not really reaching her. All right, bitch, listen, this is what it is. And I come at you and, you don't take offense to it because you're like, I love that. I'm like, wow, I don't. If you talk to me like that, I'd be a crumbled little.
I like the directness. I hate the him-haw and all over. I hate that. Don't just, what do you got to say? But I remember being a teenager and listen, I was very harsh. As a teenager, I had my reasons. Most teenagers can come off extremely harsh in general, but I also had a lot of trauma I was dealing with. But I would just say it. And I just straight up, that was mean, or what you said was wrong, or la, 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 whatever. And I just would say it. And then I remember my mom sitting me down and telling me that I was a brutal person and that I had zero compassion and I didn't care about anybody else but myself.
Right.
And you know how those words just kind of eat at you your entire freaking life.
Yes.
And so I stopped communicating altogether.
Yes.
Like I stopped saying things altogether because I felt like anything that I said was going to get translated as harsh or mean or horrible or any of those things. And so I became this hushed person.
Yes.
And listen, all the while becoming a hushed person, all of those feelings are inside of me bubbling. And so I was hushed most of the time, and then I would explode. Except now I just say what I mean what I say, and I don't explode like I used to. Now I'm going to tell you, like, if you do something that hurts me, I'm going to tell you, whether you meant to or not, you hurt me by doing XYZ. And I'm very direct, and I don't say, well, I'm like, no, Jimmy, when you said this, it hurt me, it triggered this, it made me feel this. And also, don't ever say this to somebody, you made me feel. No, when you did this, when you said this, I felt. It's all about you. Just make sure that there's a line there.
Yes.
And being effective in your wording is important in communication too. But that's a learned skill. It takes time to do that.
Yes. And while you were saying that about your childhood, I was thinking back to when I was around my dad. It was the same thing. Like I had to non-communicate because I knew if I communicated, good, bad, or ugly, and especially if I communicated how I really felt, I suffered worse consequences. And so that's a tough thing when that becomes ingrained in you at such an early age that you're allowed to be seen but not heard. That was a very real thing. And in the 80s, it was very acceptable that, well, kids just don't say anything. And I hate that. Like, I never learned until I was out on my own and started to develop as an adult, and even well into adulthood, maybe into my 30s, before I really came into my own that I could speak. And then even then, I couldn't speak honestly and freely till I worked on some of the conditioning from my childhood. So it's like, if you struggle in this area with communication, guys, dig deeper, go one step deeper.
Let me tell you, I recently had a conversation with my mom, and it was extremely vulnerable. I kind of can't believe I'm going to tell it, but I'm going to tell it because it's important that you guys do the same thing in your life. So you heard the story I just told about what she said to me. That has just stuck with me. And I've kind of around my mom and not been direct in communication with her for a long time for fear that I would lose the relationship. And so, I mean, like really recently, a week or two ago, we were having a tough conversation. And I told her, I said, Mom, I'm going to be very vulnerable with you right now. I feel afraid to tell you how I really feel, because I feel like if I say the wrong thing to you, you'll choose not to be in my life. And I feel like our relationship is on the line anytime I talk to you about things that we don't agree with. And that was such a huge, monumental communication point in our life. Huge, guys.
Because what happened next?
Yeah. She was like shocked. She was like, Brittany, you feel that way? You feel that way that I would ever choose to not be in your life based off of something that you said or did? And I was like, yes, I do. I felt it for many, many, many years. And she was shocked. And so she communicated back. And this is like the first time we've ever, like, it's a breakthrough moment for us. And she was like, no, like, no matter what you say, I love you and I'll be in your life. And she's like, if we don't agree, I still love you. And I was like, dude, I'm glad we said that out loud, because that was, I struggled.
Well, and think about the assumption that you made for so long, held it back. You did the same thing with your dad, by the way. A lot of assumptions about your dad, and then was able to communicate in a drunken state, but still communicate with him. And now you're the best of the buds. And so, guys, I hope here in episode 59, For the Love of Life, Communicate, you're getting what we're saying, that it takes effort, it takes courage, it takes letting go of old paradigms and old assumptions, and just take that chance. If they're worth having in your life, they're worth communicating well with. All right, Miss Brittany, take us home.
All right, guys. OneStepDeeperPodcast.com is the website. Find all the past episodes there. YouTube, Sundays, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's the first place you can watch all the podcasts and hear. If you're one of those loyal listeners, you got to hear it before anybody else. That's where you can find that. It also goes up on Facebook and Instagram, the full episodes there. I put up the tidbit. So does Jimmy on our page on Instagram, becoming.BrittanyLee. Living Low Carb Man over on Instagram. We are an audio podcast. You can listen to us anywhere you find your podcast: Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, ALEXA. And if you're over on Apple, listen to us there. Make sure you leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And also, again, I said it during the podcast one more time. My DMs are always open on Instagram if you need someone to communicate to. I'm always there to listen.
We both are. And so, yeah, reach out to us if you want that. And for the love of life, get our book when it comes out here very soon. The one, you like how I did that? One Step Deeper Journal, The Foundations. Go check it out when it comes out. I promise you guys, it's very, very close. We had to actually reformat the whole friggin' book after we changed over things. And so bear with us. It is coming, but it's coming very, very soon. Well, Miss Brittany, great episode as always. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll be back again real soon. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
OneStepDeeperPodcast.com. Have you experienced the dreaded keto flu? Did you know that most of these symptoms are actually due to your body dumping excess electrolytes? This is where Element comes in. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means lots of salt with no sugar. Element is formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and is perfectly suited to folks following a keto, low-carb, or paleo diet. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio, 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, with none of the junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS. Everyone needs electrolytes, especially those on low-carb diets, or if you practice intermittent or extended fasting, if you're physically active, or sweat a lot. Add Element today and see how much better you feel and perform. Use the URL drinklmnt.com/Jimmy.